Okay, I was talking to people, telling them I would make a video on why exactly I'm a Christian. And sorry if this thing is so loud, but before on my other videos, if you look at them, you can't hear me at all. So I thought I would make it a little louder, and this is an obvious way to do that. Um, so I'm going to start off with the reasons why there were problems in my life, and I guess that's the most appropriate place to start off, seeing how that's why I'm a Christian. Um, okay, so when I was a little kid, I mean little as in way long ago, 4 years old, 3 years old, something like that. Um, my parents had married, um, and when they had married, my mom already had a problem with drugs, and my dad knew it, but he also was going to try and help her. Well, between his work, me, and her, he didn't have enough time. So, so it didn't happen, and her problems got worse. And it got to the point where he would go to the bank and look and write a check for like $100, and they would tell him that he didn't have enough money to write a check anymore because all the money in his account was gone. All, he had like $5,000 in it, and it was just gone. He he was a forgiving person, but he would always get angry about stuff. I mean, like, obviously he would get angry about that, but he'd get angry about anything, really. If he was in a bad mood because of something like that, um, for instance, me as a little kid, I could um, have my soda can turn the wrong way at supper. If it weren't turned exactly the right way facing me, then he would get mad at me. That's how it was. Um, he was a disciplinary, very disciplinary person. So anyway, I had to face my mom doing drugs and my dad whipping me sometimes, but that's not really that big of a deal. But it was the way he would shout at people and just totally ignore anything they had to say. Pretty unreasonable, actually. It reminds me of some people on different threads that I see that shout and cuss and stuff. Um, but anyway, eventually they did break up and they divorced. They broke up 8 days before my 5th birthday. I'll never forget it. April the 12th, 1998, is the day that they just broke up. It was because my mother took karate for self-defense, and my father was kind of upset that day, so he comes home, and she confronts him, and I'm in the living room of the house, and there's two really big windows where I can look right out and see the front yard where they're at. So I'm looking at them, and my mom has like this rake. She puts this rake in her hand and just snaps it right on my father, like a karate move or something like that, like Jackie Chan, like, and it snaps. Um, my dad doesn't do a thing to her. He walks over to the car, our family car, and just starts ripping it to pieces. Like, he starts ripping the engine out, just throwing stuff out of the engine. So I'm kind of like, oh God, I gotta go out there and stop him before he does something really bad. Um, Even as a little kid, I knew that something bad was happening. Um, but they had told my sister, who was older than me, to keep me inside. So I'm like, gosh, man, you gotta let me out. Let me out. I'm just gonna tell him to stop fighting. I'm not gonna do anything stupid. I'm just gonna tell him. And she's like, okay. And that was a surprise because usually she like throws me around and just pushes me away and says, no, I'm not gonna let you do it. Um, but I went out there and I was like, Dad, stop. Why are you fighting? Stop fighting. This is ridiculous. Um, and he's like, if you don't shut up and stand over there, I'm gonna beat you. And I'm like, all right, that's fine. Um, I it's not really funny if you think about it. It wasn't. Um, it was kind of sad. Um, the way that they acted towards each other. Um, they still to this day do not like each other that much. They still avoid each other. Um, but what happened is my mom accused my dad of assaulting her. So he was arrested and he was taken off. And my mom stayed behind and she took care of me and my brother and my sister, which for someone who's addicted to heroin, that's not a very good thing to be, you know, she couldn't take care of us. She couldn't take care of herself. So at night it's raining and it's pouring down rain, and I'm just this little 4-year-old kid. It was supposed to be my birthday. I was supposed to be getting presents. Everyone had totally forgotten about me. Okay? No one remembered. Like, even the people that remembered didn't remember, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But, um, and I'm sitting there and I'm crying because no one remembered my birthday, and, um, my dad's gone, and it's pretty much was supposed to be a great day, and it turned out being one of the worst days of my life. So I'm sitting there crying, looking out the window at the rain, and I start praying. And I'm like, God, please let my dad come back. Please let my dad come back. I knew he wasn't coming back, but I kept praying anyway. Um, so later on that week, when it actually was my birthday, I'm not going to release my birthday for, obvious security reasons. But my birthday, um, my grandmother, who had heart problems to begin with, was hosting a party at my school for me. Um, and halfway through the party, she started having a heart attack, so she had to leave. So I get home that evening. I didn't realize she was having a heart attack. No one told me. My mom and her just left. I didn't know what it was. I just thought they left. It's their deal. I get home. There's no one there. Like, there's no one there. There's no one at the neighbor's house. There's no one at my aunt and uncle's house. There's no one at my other uncle's house. There's no one. And so I feel totally alone on my birthday. And yeah, I got nothing but, heartache that year. So the years go by, and I don't really, know where my family's at. I don't know if they're gonna die. I don't know anything because my mother's got this problem, and my grandmother, God bless her, she took after us. She took care of us when my mother was not in a position to do so, and she would give us food, give us a room to sleep in, all of this stuff, and she provided help for us. And my mother, when I was with my mom, she would just take us wherever. She smoked in the car, which is horrible, by the way. Never smoke in the car with little children, because they will never be able to get around cigarettes ever again. Trust me. And I remember one time she would, or many times she would take me to this drug dealer's house. And I hate that man. I didn't hate him then. To me, back then, he looked like a fat slob. Now he's a fat slob that I hate. Because I know what he was doing. Back then, I didn't know. I didn't understand what drugs were. I didn't know there was a such thing as a drug. I just knew that I didn't like cough medicine. That's all. And so it was really devastating for my mom to have so many problems, and I don't understand why, because I don't understand what drugs are. So I'm sitting there like, why, Mom, are you doing this stuff? And she can't give me a straight answer, and that just upsets her, which upsets me, which upsets everyone. So now I'm really upset at all of this, and I can't really figure out an answer to it, and I don't have any answers to it. But life goes on, and she takes me to her ex-husband's house. My dad was her second husband. Her ex-husband was the one who started getting her on drugs in the first place. Another guy I would like to, punch right in the face. And I remember one time she drove up, I looked right into his eyes, and you know what I saw? I saw fear, man. He was afraid, and it was because he was addicted to heroin just as much as my mother was. And if things hadn't turned out the way they did, she would have ended up like him. He had 7 strokes, and now when I see him, I don't want to punch him. I want to oh man, he's like a brain dead zombie. But anyway, um, so my father gets custody of me again in 2000, October the 13th, 2000, and so it really, in a way, that prayer was answered from so long ago, and I live with him at his mother's house because he can't afford anything. So I lived there for a while, and he wasn't living there for free. Trust me, that's just the only place he could live. My dad's better than that. But he still had those anger fits. In the 3rd grade, I got all A's, like literally, I got all A's because I was, on a roll. I wanted to be perfect for my dad, so he wouldn't shout at me. I get home, and I made 1B. That whole year, I made 1B. And what does he do? He shouts at me. Why'd you make a B? Why not an A? All of this stupid, really trivial stuff. And he's sitting here shouting at me like, Why'd you do that? And I just start crying because it's just 1B to me. I don't understand. And that just makes him worse. But that just kind of gives you insight into his character, and his anger issues. But anyway, 2004 rolls around, and January 9th, 2004, my mother has a car accident. And at the time, she was starting to get better and better, inch by inch. She still had the drug problem, but she was getting better anyway. And she had this car accident. What happened was she has a 1993 Toyota Camry at the time, and she was in a line of traffic on a 2-lane highway. So a drunk driver, ironically, pulls out around, goes to enter back into the highway where she's at, hits her in the back right-hand side of her car in her bumper, which knocks her out into the traffic on the other side. She had to pull out in traffic as opposed to hit someone else because, that's how it was at the time. She figured, hey, I'll just go off into the other ditch instead of hurting someone else. She pulls out in traffic, and lo and behold, there's a dump truck coming down the road. The dump truck T-bones her right in the passenger side, flattens the entire passenger side of the car, and shook her basically like a rag doll in the car. And it was so bad, I wasn't even told for a week. I wasn't told for a week after that. And what made it worse is my father didn't turn on the TV that week. And I wasn't allowed to call her or anything like that. It was her birthday. That happened on her birthday. I wasn't allowed to call her because she had had a car accident, and I didn't know why. So the reason I was told a week after that is because I was supposed to go visit her, and my dad's like, no, you're not going. And I was like, why? And he tells me, your mom had a major car accident last week, and she's in a coma, and she has been since she had the accident. And I just flipped out because it was just after Christmas, and that Christmas, believe it or not, she had given me a Bible, and in fewer words, she kind of apologized for having so many problems. Both of my parents still love me for that, even if they did have problems. And well, I guess this is a good spot to stop. I'll continue on the next one.